Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Looking forward to it. Next item on the agenda is discussion on the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force. And we have Mario Maciel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mario Maciel, city employee since 1994, and this neighborhood commission is dear to me. I think one of the most important commissions, having been a project crackdown coordinator back in the early 90s, the neighborhood revitalization strategy coordinator, and then the strong neighborhoods initiative. So a flavor of all of them with mixed results, obviously. I'm not here to say they were the best thing, but they did bring progress to our fine city. The rest of my career has been with the Mayor's Gang Task Force, and today I'm here to kind of bring you all up to speed, just in case you may not be fully aware of it. I would hope that you are intimately aware of it, but if this issue doesn't impact your life, sometimes it's not something that's discussed at the dinner table, nor at the pulpit, and it only impacts those that are impacted by it. And so today I hope to expose all of us to it, regardless if it's impacting you on a day-to-day basis, so that you're aware of what's happening in our fine city. As you all know, we're 177 square miles, which makes this a unique challenge. It's a privilege to be the ambassador and the division manager of the Mayor's Gang Task Force, but I gotta tell you what an enormous challenge it is with the melting pot that our community is, the ethnic breakdown, the huge square mileage of our city has created quite an obstacle for us, but yet we seem to be one of the largest safe cities in the nation. We don't applaud ourselves. I'll be showing you in a little bit that we've lost lives, and we continue to lose lives every single year. But comparatively, if you would have moved north or south, anywhere in this state, you would see the true impacts of gang violence, where there isn't a focus and a concerted effort by council and our mayor to combat this. These aren't the kind of things that just go away with time. It's a shame that we have to allocate general fund resources to combat this, but it'd be more of a shame for us to ignore it. It is a reality, and I hope to display that to you today. Will you be moving those for me? So moving on, if I may, just giving you a quick little history. This was started by Mayor Susan Hammer in 1991, and I've got to tell you, there were gang issues before 1991 in San Jose, without a doubt. But administrations that prior to that had talked about there were youth issues. There was even directives. You don't use the word gang with the mercury. You don't do things, and we don't have gang problems in San Jose. And I applaud Mayor Susan Hammer, who stepped up to the podium in '91 and finally said, we do. And she started mobilizing what she called the Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force. And she did it on the heels of seeing this trend of high-risk youth attending and getting kicked out of teen centers in large volumes. And she started to bring together municipalities, education providers, social services, justice, faith, business, community members, and put them together in an attempt to create an initiative that has now been in existence, and I'm very proud to say, going on its 25th year. Living through 4 mayors, 6, 7 police chiefs, and not being thrown out like the baby in the bathwater with every administration. It has seemed to have the community input, and I really believe that that's what's made this initiative the premier initiative in the city, is that it's been mandated by the residents of this city to make sure that we continue to be one of the safest cities in this country. Because it doesn't take much to slide. I will allude to Salinas, who is simply 120,000 people and had 40 gang-related homicides, ladies and gentlemen. We're a city of 1 million, and we had 9 last year. It's still 9 families tremendously impacted, but you could easily see the slippery slope when you don't have the right resources to combat this. Anyways, she established a continuum of prevention, intervention, and suppression. She knew that you couldn't just prevent your way out of it. You couldn't just intervene with the individuals that were currently in it, and that you had to really think of the full continuum, and so we applaud her for that. And back in those days, we started with a 70% prevention strategy. You know, many people say an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of intervention, and it's truly true. Unfortunately, prevention is the first thing that gets cut. When you're having upticks in crime, people want you to deal with the criminals of today, not the criminals of tomorrow or of a decade down the road. And the reality of it is that we are now 70% intervention and 30% prevention. And so I just would allude that that has completely flipped in the course of about 25 years. Again, 1991, we started with a 1 million budget. We are now at close to about 4.5 million and have held steady there except for the years of 2010 through 12, where we all saw the recession, and we dipped. Quite honestly, we dipped down to 2.5 million those 2 years. And I will tell you that in those 2 years, the city saw its highest homicide rates, its highest gang-related homicide rates, with 18 and 19 gang-related homicides respectively in 2011 and 12. And as soon as the safety net was reestablished in 13, it was dropped back to 6, 8, and this coming year, 9. So anyways, ladies and gentlemen, that's not scientific. The data tells the story, the correlations are there. The stronger the funding and the safety net, the better we take care of our cities. Moving forward, if I may.
What is BEST?
BEST, sir, is bringing everyone's strengths together, and it's our funding arm, and it's actually 2 slides down the road. And I'll get to that.
Okay, just what is the acronym?
I probably shot it out without telling you what it was. This is my world, and I just flow with it, so thinking everyone knows what I'm talking about, and I know something.
Explain your acronyms.
Definitely. So here, simply put up there, is our structure. We do work on a 2-tiered structure. We have a policy team that meets every even month of the year at 7:30 in the morning on that 4th Friday, and it's a powerhouse committee of the mayor, the chief, the district attorney, the chief of probation, the school superintendents, the public defender, and there are no delegates. It's been amazing to see these individuals take this interagency issue that affects our county and city so seriously that even animosities that may exist between city and county seem to be alleviated for that 1.5 hour to 2 hour meeting, because we're focused on the safety of our youth and our communities. Then we have the tech team, ladies and gentlemen, which is about 180 direct service providers. That's really where the rubber meets the road. And they meet every second Wednesday of the month. We met this morning from 8 to 10 a.m. And it's really all the funded agencies, all the principals to those most impacted high schools, our faith community, et cetera, all come so that we can hear the monthly climate reports of this city, and not just listen and acknowledge that we have crime, but to come up with an action matrix for every incident that happens, and how we wrap ourselves around those individuals that are impacted by this. I gotta tell you, the issue isn't what's wrong with these kids. It really is an issue of underlying trauma, and it's really, well, what happened to you, Mijo? What happened to you? Where in life were you so injured that you would put yourself in this circumstance? So, anyways, let's buck up a little bit there. This policy team, under the leadership of Mayor Reed, finally said the policy team needs to do more than just meet on a bi-monthly basis. And so he created 4 subcommittees that actually have been amazing. A tech team, an interagency subcommittee chaired by County Supervisor Cindy Chavez, a community engagement committee chaired by our Vice Mayor Rose Herrera, and a city school collaborative chaired by the mayor himself. These 4 subcommittees now actually take on the work of the strategic work plan, which I'll be showing you. Prior to that, it seemed like all the work landed on city staff. The policy team would meet, they would identify issues, and then that's all. But with these 4 subcommittees, it seems that every goal within our strategic work plan now lands in one of the subcommittees, and we're seeing a lot more traction and a lot more progress. So that's the structure that many cities are now replicating throughout this country.
What is CBO?
CBO is a community-based organization,
Right.
nonprofit.
Okay.
Moving on. The premise has always been about 360 accountability. No one agency, no one person or one group was going to be able to solve this issue. If you look in the middle, ladies and gentlemen, we kind of say that our youth will hit at some point in time that Y juncture in their lives. That either is going to lead them towards personal transformation, which is moving forward in life, or that personal accountability because they make the wrong choices in life. And we know that that is not the path we want. The school to prison pipeline is healthy. We need to create a pipeline to affluency. This is Silicon Valley. We shouldn't be, that we're having discussions about more jails just irks me, it kills me, but it is what it is, and they are needed also. But please take a look at this circle. It has been a real village, a real team effort to come together and take this on as a mutual issue. The faith-based community, parents, our work to future, PD, schools, healthcare, CBOs, and it really is going to take this type of effort. Most of the country has now recognized this, that you can't put these initiatives in the city manager's office alone or in San Jose PD. As a matter of fact, in our fine city, it's in the Department of Parks and Rec. And where else would you want to put a youth initiative that has to deal with community, that has the infrastructure of late night gyms and teen centers, that has the gift of gab? You know, we're people, and Parks and Rec has been an amazing place for our city to host this initiative, and that's where it's seated at this point. Moving forward. This is, unfortunately, as great as I think my city is, a harsh reality that we have to look at. And that is that we still have over 6,500 validated gang members in our fine city. And what I mean by validated means they have met state criteria and been stopped so many times that they are now on a pretty severe list. Being validated is not a great thing. Being validated means that the next time you get prosecuted for anything, whether it's stealing a piece of bubble gum or taking a joyride in a car, whatever the case may be, gang enhancements are guaranteed on that young individual. So sometimes merited, sometimes you get put on a list like that because you wear a white t-shirt and you have a buzz haircut and you happen to have a goatee. And believe me outside of these certain slacks wearing the wrong thing could be perceived as something different than a professional in this industry. It's the sadness of our reality. But anyways, beyond that, we have so many more non-validated. We call those the wannabes that are watching this on TV, watching this new hip-hop culture and this rap and everything that's just inciting violence, talking about guns and drugs and devaluing women. We're dealing with tens of thousands of those type of youngsters just waiting to be recruited. So don't think it's only those 6,500. We're a huge city. We have approximately 102 validated gangs in this city. You would say 102. No, 102 different little subsets in our fine city that are willing to do crime and hurt individuals. So, and about 200 in Santa Clara County. So more than half of them in just our city. We know we're the biggest portion of Santa Clara County, and unfortunately it reflects itself in the number of gang sets we have. Some of the sad statistics are that 58% of the victims and of the offenders of gang-related crimes are 19 years or younger. This is a youth epidemic. This is not an issue where we have 30-year-olds or late 20-year-olds committing the bulk of these crimes. Stat after stat, month after month, the perpetrators and victims fall between 14 and 19-year-olds. They're susceptible to impression, to being influenced. They live in horrific situations and buy into the false promises that a gang can offer an individual. And so when we start seeing that the victims and offenders are all youth, we know that there are older individuals pushing buttons and using youth who sometimes get leniency by the judicial system when they do things as compared to an adult. So it's sad. Another new trend that's just as alarming is that of our female gangs. For a long time we said this was a male issue and that females were simply carriers of drugs, carriers of the weapons, because they don't get patted down as severely as guys do. But now they're perpetrating, they're setting up their own gangs, they're perpetrating violence. They have really become a power in the city. Nearly 30% of the adjudications in Santa Clara County this past year were female. And so, thank goodness council and the mayor realized that, appropriated some special funding, and I started our first female intervention team this year with a team of 7 amazing young ladies that are doing gender responsive type of work for our young ladies. Because I'll tell you, prior to that team, we were putting young ladies through male-centric curriculums because that's all we had. We said this was a male issue, and if a young lady got trapped in it, we shoved her right through the male issue. But how do you talk about rape? How do you talk about the things that are impacting these young ladies with a bunch of guys in the room? So thank goodness we're addressing that. And the last sad thing is that the reality is we're not perfect. 9 out of the 29 homicides in this past year in 2015 were gang-related, 2 of which happened in the most sacred time of the year. Over the Christmas break in Districts 3 and 5, we had our last 2. In District 3 on 26 and Julian, a young man who's a rocker-type young kid. Christmas morning, comes out, gets checked. What do you bang? I don't do that. Pop, 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 stabbed and killed. An argument on Quimby and White a few weeks back also turns into mayhem, and a young lady gets her throat slashed, gets killed, 2 months pregnant, and it's just a heinous loss of life. We thought we were going to end the year at 7 out of 29, and last year we had 8, and believe me, we don't applaud 7, but we were somewhat happy that we had kept a lid on things. We've never said we have the silver bullet. What we have is a structure and resources in place that have kept a lid on this violence, that have not allowed it to escalate to 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 homicides. For us to be Oakland or Richmond, and I don't mean to bash those cities, but the reality is that there's a direct connection between our public safety and economic vibrance. Nobody wants to invest in Salinas. No corporations, no rational employee wants to bring their families to those communities. So having a safe San Jose means a vibrant and an economically vibrant San Jose. And that's why I always say public safety and the Mayor's Gang Task Force and the economy of San Jose, although not as seen as distinct, are so interconnected. Because if we allow this to spiral out of control, I wonder if our tax base will remain the same in this fine city. When we lose investment, when we lose jobs, etc. Moving forward, if I may. This is our strategic work plan for 2015-17. We've been in place since 1991, and our gangs have changed. You know, they are mobile, hostile, and agile now. Back in the day, a kid would claim his street, and that was his turf. You know, that was your barrio, that was your set, that's what you took care of. Now we've got cell phones. A kid could get in a fight on the west side of town, and within 10 minutes could have a mob of individuals backing him up. And technology has created a way to recruit via the web, et cetera, et cetera. So what we've done is not stay stagnant, is what I'm getting at. This fine city embarks on a community input process probably every 2 to 3 years. When we did this one, over 1,800 residents came out to 10 town hall meetings that we held in almost every council district. To really ask you all, what are you still dealing with? Yes, I have no doubt I could write this thing in a vacuum, in an isolated office, but that's not the way we do things here in San Jose. This is true community engagement and transparency. And so we have now, our first work plan, you guys, talked about just stopping the violence. If you can put the red ones over there and the blue ones over there, that'll be it. We'll call that a success. After that, in about 2005, we started writing work plans called Reclaiming Our Youth. We took the moral imperative to say, we've got to fight the same way they're being recruited and gangs are reclaiming our lives and violence is claiming youth lives. We are going to reclaim our youth, and that's what we called it. Then in 2007 and in 2010, we enacted a work plan called ACT, Action Community Transformation, because we believe in those 3 words combined are what's given us the oomph to keep a lid on this. And lastly, as I told you earlier, it's not what's wrong with this kid right now, it's what happened, what trauma impacted your life. And so this year's work plan is Trauma to Triumph. It's recognizing that early trauma and caring for an individual. What you see in violence and what the kid perpetrates that gets them arrested is the manifestation of all that trauma. We can't address burglary. If he stole something from a store, that isn't the kid's problem. There are so many underlying issues of abuse and neglect and drug abuse that are the real root causes of that burglary. So sentencing alone isn't it. And so Trauma to Triumph is really taking a look at that and valuing our youth. If I could move forward one more slide. It's not by accident that the very first guiding principle here is we value our youth, and we value all youth, even those that have to be lifted up, dusted off, and put back on the right path. If there's anyone that's perfect in this room, I'd really like to meet you. Because you're looking at a former adjudicated youth that did go off to college, that did come now to work for the city and lead a major initiative, and it happens. There's just tons of circumstances. So again, we need to value even that youth that at first sight would elicit fear from you, maybe even a desire to keep them at bay. But let me tell you that we value them. We have strategic goals, we have outcomes. I'm not going to bore you with that. I actually, if you would all like, have copies of the strategic work plan that I will have here for you at the next meeting. I apologize I didn't bring you any. I happen to have a couple extra boxes. So
it's also available online in PDF.
It is, right, Paul? On the mayor's webpage, under the Mayor's Gang Task Force, you can also download it in there. Please take a look at that link. Paul and the mayor's office have done an amazing job posting who the funded agencies are, how much they're getting, what services they're providing, et cetera, et cetera. And I could always come back and talk to you about that. I could come back and talk to you about a specific program, school-based, tattoo removal, jobs, whatever it is. But today, it's more about the overall gang task force. Moving forward, if I may. This is San Jose Best, sir, bringing everyone's strengths together. And it's our funding arm that has allowed us to fund about $2.2 million annually to anywhere between 20 and 25 community-based organizations. This year, there are only 20 that were eligible, and they can only provide these 5 services. If you want to provide some sort of different service, the city at this point has not approved it. For me to utilize these services, you must put a proposal in to do one of these 5 eligible services. And believe me, these have changed. About 5 years ago, there were 10 eligible services. 3 years ago, there were 7. And as I tell you, things change, things merge and blend in together. And henceforth, at this particular juncture in our evolution, we have 5 eligible services. Everything from those cognitive groups that we do at high schools and middle schools with the 15, 20 most hard to handle youth at those schools, who else knows but the principal and vice principal, and if we can engage them on a cognitive type of curriculum that really talks about the choices and consequences and the impacts of their decisions. Most kids they do have the epiphanies, they do have the capacity for rational thinking, and sometimes they're just not having these discussions at home. This could be a multi-generational issue. You could have uneducated parents, you could have parents who actually believe in the gang lifestyle. And so many kids that when they hear the message from a neutral party want to migrate towards it, believe in it, but are still dealing with all the other influences of friends, neighborhoods, families. Every step forward they take, someone's trying to suck them right back in. So that's San Jose best served. Moving forward, if I may, I'm going to leave you with this last 2 silos. They're silos, obviously. These last 2 slides were actually developed by a lieutenant who's retired from San Jose PD. If any of you have ever met Rich Saito, an amazing man who had in his heart more than just enforcement. He really believed that the problem with our communities were that people believed in this traditional way of thinking, that prevention should only be done by schools and parents and churches, that you're dealing with little kids when you're doing prevention, and that's who should do it. And if you're going to do intervention, you leave that to youth workers and counselors, and don't even step into suppression, because that's done by police, DAs, correction, and probation. There are many cities in our fine state and in this country that are still aligned like that. And henceforth, Detroit has 500 gang-related homicides. Memphis, Chicago. We all sit on a national forum under the Attorney General. San Jose is the only city that sticks out like a sore thumb. Not because of the violence, because of the lack of. And yet we're asked to be part of a major national forum with all these cities. And we ask the blatant question, why would you bring San Jose with Memphis, Detroit, Chicago? They said, so you can be that beacon of hope and structure. You've lasted 25 years. You guys have results. And we've moved away from this. If I may go to the next slide. Rich Saito said, what's made us, click it again so that we can get to the silos, is that everyone can do all 3 strategies. And I really believe this. That even community members must have a role in suppression. I know it's easier said than done, but use your anonymous tip hotlines. Do not close the shutter. And I saw nothing when PD comes searching for tips. I know that there's a fear of retaliation, and that's undeniable. But there are anonymous ways. But there is a role, even for schools, parents, and churches, to help with suppression. But vice versa. A sergeant comes to me and goes, Mario, it broke my heart today. My officers came to me and told me a story. I said, what was it, sir? He said, well, they got a call that a 14-year-old was shooting holes through his bedroom walls with a shotgun. And the mother called us in. So we showed up. We got the boy. We opened the closet, found 5 pounds of marijuana, took the shotgun. Great success, Sarge. And the Sarge looked at him and said, yeah, what else did you see? He said, well, I saw his shivering mother with a 2-year-old in her hand, and a 16-year-old brother with a Palmas plaque on, looking at me with a hatred. And what'd you do with them? Well, nothing. We yellow taped the house, we confiscated the drugs, and we're gone. And he said to that officer, he said, did you not feel the need or the empathy to work with that mother, with that next 16-year-old, to try to prevent that 2-year-old in the arms? And not to make counselors out of officers, but to simply put a resource card in this little pocket. If it doesn't fit in this pocket for an officer, they're not likely to use it. So we created resource forums, and they've insisted that their officers, when they go do a bust, that they take into consideration that there's an entire family there. And that we, as officers and enforcement, have some role in prevention also. And I believe there's something organic about this that is being clipped and looked at the national level by the Department of Justice. And communities are trying to aspire to this, to take those silos that are vertical and tip them sideways so that you're a part across the entire continuum. This is San Jose, ladies and gentlemen. Now, in 1991, we were straight up in silo mode. The cops would talk to my interventionist as, That ex-gangster, I just had my foot on his throat 6 months ago. I'm not going to work with him. And my interventionist would say, Popo, the man, there's no way we're going to partner. So we were very siloed. Today, our abilities to work with each other and protect the city have come probably over because it's real relational. Not an MOU, not a mandate by any council member or mayor, but by true relationships building between San Jose PD, San Jose Probation, our courts, our faith community, which sometimes is the only thing that'll change a gangster is true faith. I gotta tell you, even a gangster before he does dirt, does this move, and then goes and commits a crime. So the power of faith has been something that we aren't afraid of. That separation between church and state, I think, needs to be put to the side when it comes to saving these young men and women's lives, and we've had the opportunity to do that. So ladies and gentlemen, that, if I may hit the last one, is an overall view of our large Mayor's Gang Prevention Task Force, but there are so many different programs, from school-based programs, to tattoo removal, to female programs, to African American programs, to Asian programs, on and on and on that we put forth into the city. The results are that you still have violence. And that if we ever believe that the job is done and we start to lower the safety net, we've seen the results of that in 2011 and 12. And so, we'll see. In that innovation game, I've never been to it, but the Mayor's Gang Task Force, whether engineered or not, has seemed to migrate to the top year after year. And I think it's because we realize that there is no safe place here. Many of these homicides are happening up in Fowler Park, up in District 8. Affluent communities are seeing violence now, ladies and gentlemen. So it's not something that you can say is on that side of 101 and let them deal with it in Districts 3, 5, and 7. It really is across our city, and I ask you for your support and a continued relationship. I would love to come and speak to this commission more often, and I apologize that we haven't had this relationship sooner. Q&A.
Okay. Thank you.
Matt Wallen, District 8, and just to amplify to the other commissioners, I've been to a number of meetings with the vice mayor and with members of the police force in our district, which is one of those places where people don't think the gangs exist. And one of the big problems we've been having is we've been a hotspot for home burglaries. And a lot of these have been committed by gang youth who have been recruited by the gangsters because they get out of jail fast. So, you know, it's a problem that affects all of us. And he mentioned Fowler Creek Park. We had at least one homicide that, you know, the person was stabbed there and died down when somebody was trying to take them to medical attention. You know, the one at Quimby and White, right in our district. So, you know, these problems affect all of us. It's not just in the neighborhoods where you identify that's where the gangs live and fight. And it's not just the violence.
That is very true, sir. The logical thing is, I'm going to do a burglary or a home invasion. Why do it on the east side where I'm not going to find very much stuff? Why don't I come into Willow Glen or Silver Creek or Almaden or Willow Glen or the Rose Garden? If that scares you, it's because that's what they're thinking about, you know? Anyways, any other questions?
Yes, I've heard you
Can you use the
speak.
microphone?
Yes, I've heard you speak several times before at the conferences that you give on a yearly basis. And I just want to say I want to congratulate you because I see an element that I've been asking about for years, and that is the parent awareness, especially when you are telling us that the majority of these kids, children, are between the ages of 14 and 19.
Yes, ma'am.
And I know that we heard before that some of these children, their parents come to the United States as gangsters. They don't really have a training on how to get out of it. And I can recall specifically, in fact, one of the questions I asked of two of the young people who went up on the stage last year. I think it was the brother and sister. And I wanted to, and they were trying to explain the difficulty they have of even sleeping at night as they try to turn their lives around and get out of this, you know, change. And I don't know, for nights and nights and nights, I left there with a nightmare thinking about these kids, and if you remember, one of them actually broke down and cried because their dream was to even move from the area they live in San Jose for fear that there would be retribution because they wanted to get out of the game. So I am so pleased, and I would still like to see under parent awareness what's being done. You know, you've listed it, but I would like to see what's being done under parent awareness.
Norma, I'd love to come back and give you a full-blown discussion on the parent project. The district attorney's office and ourselves have now done an amazing job. And I gotta tell you, there are a lot of parent curriculums that talk about timeouts and things that, well, that's not gonna work for a rambunctious gangster. The parent project really is, how do you pull the reins on an out-of-control teenager? And how do you even use tough love, which might mean using law enforcement on your beloved one if you truly love them that much. And I tell you, that's co-facilitated by a community member and a law enforcement officer with a badge on, in uniform, intentionally. And these are 12-week sessions, 4 hours long, and the success rate is about 98%. Once parents get in, they realize that they're not the only family dealing with it. The embarrassment as parents sometimes that your child is doing this marginalizes you and your entire family. And they come there and end up with a support system, understand the true social epidemic this is. But Norma, thank you for that. And you know, you talked about the fear of these kids are struggling to transform. The beauty of San Jose is that we've been here 25 years. I'm getting kids to say yes to services barely today that we've been offering services to for 8, 9 years, but we're so entrenched and so damaged for so long, they didn't want them. And too many municipalities will start a gang task force with a grant and have it for 3 to 4 or 5 years. And that kid remembers that program's there and goes and knocks on a door that doesn't get answered or calls a phone number that no longer works. Here, 25 years of consistency. I myself, 20-some years in the initiative, and many of the employees. This is personal. We grew up in this city, many of us born here. So, thank you, Mom.
Desiree Berrigan, District 3. Has there been any consideration to expand the age for the tattoo removals? I think the cap is 26 right now.
It's actually 25.
25. Is there any way we can consider?
You know, we could always consider those things. I tell you what really drove that were the volunteer doctors. You know, this mentality that these surgeons come in and give of their free time, and it's amazing. One of them actually taught me how to golf. Me golfing, but anyways. It was great. But they come in and they want to work with youth. I tell you, the community outcry when we have a homicide of a 29-year-old or a 30-year-old is, we don't even need a community meeting. That OG made his bed, let him lie in. But if we heard a 12-year-old, a 14-year-old, or a female, believe me, the outcry is a lot larger. And so the doctors had the same sense. We want to help youth ages 14 to 25 with tattoos that are visibly noticeable. If I have a tattoo still today, you couldn't tell. And I could still market myself. So we only remove them from your neck, face, hands, and wrists. But we did set parameters. But who knows? In the future, we may have to pilot a little further out. There are resources, though, out there for cost for those others.
I've had that very question asked to me. I live in the Roosevelt Park neighborhood, so, you know, they come to me and say, you know, is there any way, you know, I'm 27 years old, can I get those services? And my hands are tied, so I think.
Yeah, ours too, you know, my heart is bigger than our economy, so I would love to just say yes ad nauseum, but then the nurse and the doctor will say, well, where are the parameters to this? And so, it is sad, but any adult can get them taken off through a program called New Skin, $75 a treatment. It's still $75 is a lot when you have to do it 10, 12 times, right? You're getting close.
I had thank you so much. I'm so glad to see that you are having some services specifically to females.
Yes, ma'am.
So if you can just elaborate a little bit on what services, and then my second question would be on your services that you put out. I see that you have vocational job training. Is entrepreneurship in there?
I don't think entrepreneurship has really blossomed yet, ma'am. It has been most of those vocational skill trainings. I think entrepreneurship should be considered. You know, these kids do have dreams. I don't aspire to give kids job placement with a broom and cleaning windows. It's teach these kids how to code, teach these kids how to do the green economy, you know, the green economy, where everyone's going solar. It takes physicality. These young men are amazing. If they're willing to align themselves to a color to death, imagine if they were your employee. And with that type of commitment, I mean, they click up for life. You give them a job and it's like the best thing in the world.
One of
So-
the things, I'm sorry, so the reason why I'm asking that, you know, I have a 31-year-old son who had been in trouble early on. Because of the tattoos, even though he finished school and
Yeah.
he did everything, it was very hard for him to become employed. So one of the things that he worked on was opening a construction company, and he hires a lot of his friends
Yeah.
who want to get out, and unfortunately, don't have the ability, or people don't want to hire them. So one of the things that I come in and I talk to them a lot is about opening their own offices, their own services, and seeing, you know, being a little bit more of a master of their own domain and their ability to make a living, and to also bring other people forward with them. So I'm wondering if that might be something you want to look at in the
I think
future.
it is something I and the city will look at, man. I think entrepreneurship is a difficult thing, right? Starting a business is easy to start, to sustain it in this economy, and we definitely don't want to give dreams or pipe. If we're gonna do that, we better have the resources to really help a kid start his business and support them holistically versus just sell a dream and watch, because these kids are sold things without the supports constantly and let down by school systems, let down by their families, let down by the legal system. I don't want to offer or write tickets or checks that we can't cash yet. But I think, Paul, you hearing it? Mayor's office, ma'am.
Well,
I think that entrepreneurship is something there that we should have the courage to embark on. We just haven't.
Okay,
Sorry.
well, I work for the Hispanic Chamber and I do a lot of classes of entrepreneurship. So to me, it's a can-do.
Absolutely.
It's a matter of if somebody has the ganas to do it.
Tango down.
So put it in the map, please.
And Amy, I'd love to come back some other time and talk about all the female services we have, because believe me, I gotta talk to you about the female-specific curriculum, the case management, the art of yoga, the Girl Scouts got choices, and with the work we're